everybody. Heading toward Wordbury, Georgia. And thought I'd get on here and tell you a little bit of my history. One of the guys that I follow, I'm gonna have to look back and see what his name is. I don't want to say the wrong name, so I'll just post it up right here on the screen. Was talking about his work history. And I've mentioned a good bit of mine, but I thought I'd go ahead and just do it chronologically since my work history is pretty much ended. Or at least let's just say my current job, I don't get paid much, but the benefits are great. And that is I work for my wife. I cut the grass, I fix stuff, you know, test out new recipes, food taster, stuff like that. So an occasional chauffeur. But anyway, to start out with, my first job, I got my first job when I was 16. I worked in the summer. And back then we had a pretty decent summer. Had almost 3 months for summer, so you could get a pretty decent summer job and make some pretty good money. And I don't know I'd have to go back and look at my records to see what it was I actually made that summer, but you know, it wasn't, I'm sure it wasn't much, but at the time it would have been a great deal of money to a guy who's 16 years old. At 16, that would have been the summer of the first year I was in high school. So I was driving and I needed the money. You know, it'd be great to have money to go out on dates and have all that stuff. And my folks were really good about giving me some money from time to time, and they always provided something for me to ride and bought the gas. One of the family cars, like my mother's station wagon or something like that, I'd get to drive. So anyway, I went to work for a company that sold parts for crusher plants, the big rock crushers, you know, the companies that make the stone to pave these roads with, the road that we're on right now, to mix with the asphalt or to put an underlayment underneath the asphalt, and it's also mixed with the asphalt. And the place I went to work was owned, well, it wasn't owned, but the president of the company was my Uncle Harry. Now, Harry was not really my uncle, but he was a friend of my father's from World War II, and then he had served under my dad in World War II. They were, you know, great friends, and he had known me since I was first adopted when I was a baby. He had an adopted daughter, so that, you know, that created even more of a bond between my dad and Uncle Harry. And he hired me to work in the shipping and receiving department. And they got stuff in all the time from the airport, from the bus station. I'd make a couple trips a day to both places, take stuff to UPS to drop stuff off, you know, however it would, post office, however we needed to ship something to get a part out or receive our inventory coming in. I was the guy they'd throw into a van and I'd go get it, and I'd come back and I'd do inventory. You know, we put stuff in inventory. I learned where stuff was. We sold some pretty big parts, stuff that you'd have to load with a forklift, and we sold some smaller ones. We also had some other little lines of equipment, and to be honest with you, I don't remember much about it because it was so long ago, but I do know that we sold the box. Well, we sold the body of a dump truck. You know, you just take the dump truck part of a dump truck off. That's what we put on there, and we would sell those, put them on, install them, and you know, did that. And I got to help with that a little bit. But anyway, so I worked for Uncle Harry that first summer. The second summer, I worked for a small construction company. I got to drive their trucks. I got to learn how to operate a loader. Most of this equipment was Caterpillar. A Cat loader, 955 loader, I think it was, a D5 and a D6. I believe it even a D7 Cat bulldozer. Learned how to operate a Terex pan, which I've shown you pictures of in previous vlogs. I learned how to dig a ditch. I learned how to lay sewer pipe and water pipe. Learned how to do curb and gutter. Learned how to set forms for that. And again, that was just a summer job, and you know, we did almost everything. So the next summer, I worked for a company right beside my Uncle Harry's place, and I got a job there doing pretty much the same thing, shipping and receiving. And I got to learn what pieces of equipment they had. They were carrying forklifts and industrial forklifts and other pieces of equipment. And so I did their shipping and receiving, and run into the post office, run into the bus station and the airport to pick stuff up, to drop stuff off. I missed a summer when I had my bad automobile accident, and so I didn't get to work that summer, but that was the only one that I really didn't get to. I really hurt my leg so bad that I really was about a month where I really could barely walk on it, so I thought I'd just take the summer off and rest, and I was okay with my folks. They really encouraged me to work all the time, but when I wasn't in school, but they understood that I couldn't do it this time, so I just kind of hung out, took it easy at the house. Had some other little jobs when I went off to college. I didn't get to work every summer because I was not a great student and had to go to summer school a good bit. I also had to go to summer camp, not the kind of summer camp you're thinking of. I was a forestry student, and once I figured out I was not going to make it as an engineer, and we had forestry summer camp where you go and you learned how to survey, you learned everything there was to know about forestry. We took trips to paper mills and places like that. You learned learned about plywood, learned how to make plywood, all kind, everything you can think about. That's what we did. And so but one job I did have, which was, looking back on it, my favorite job I've ever had, was a part-time job I had while I was in school at the little place called the Frog and Nightgown. Now, I've probably mentioned this before, but just because it's in my work history, I'll mention it quickly. I was a third cook and dishwasher. My good friend Chris, whom I've mentioned on here a few times before, whom I've known since we were 4, was also going to school the same place I was. He had gotten the job, and he didn't much care for the job. I think he told me in the end he really hated the job because the head cook kind of had it in for him and would make him do all the really nasty jobs, clean out all the, pull out the stove and get all that really gunked grease up on the floor behind the stove and all that stuff. Go up and clean out the ventilators where all that grease and stuff. And most of the time when I worked there, I was working with the second cook, and he didn't care about any of that. He didn't care about any of that at all. It was cool. There was a helicopter out in the field out there. He didn't care about any of that stuff. So, but the waitresses were hired, I'm convinced, for their looks. They wore black leotards and a little skirt that was probably this tall, no joke, that was about this tall. Let me put it this way, they didn't have to bend over to show you what they had. But I was a good kid, and I didn't, they liked me because I was just an employee there. There was no fooling around for this guy with those girls. They were way out of my league. But anyway, I really, really enjoyed working there. I would have worked there all through college, but unfortunately what would this have been? This would have been the early 70s. We had a economic downturn come along, and the restaurant, it was a restaurant nightclub, and it just couldn't survive. Okay, I've got to speed along here. This is going to be a mile long. Graduation, I get out of college. I'm not a stellar student, so the offers do not come pouring in. I am offered a job running a chainsaw for a company for a while until they could move me up a little bit, and I decided that was really not what I wanted to do. So about that time, 3 of my friends who were old Sports Car Club of America racing buddies had an opportunity, said, look, we want to start a business. We'd like you to be involved in it. And I said, okay, great, we'll do it. So we got started basically as a car repair outlet, but we wanted to branch off into doing custom race cars and things like that, try to build our business that way. That didn't happen. We did become motorcycle dealers. We had a salesman come through and said, hey, why don't you why don't you sell Hodaka and motorcycles and Benelli mopeds, Rokon motorcycles and tractors, and OSA. And so we decided to do that because they fronted us everything. They just said, we're going to bring them in here. You sell them if you can. And we ended up becoming a Suzuki dealership at one point. We lost our butts. That's a whole different story. I lost my fanny. Went back into construction simply because there were no phones and nobody could find me. Went through construction for about a year and a half, really learned how to, really became an expert operator on certain pieces of equipment, and had to make the decision whether I was going to continue on with that or do something else. An opportunity came along for me to go to work for the company that I had just recently retired from. And you start from the bottom, as always. I started in the shop, worked there for 9 months and assembling new equipment. And then from there I went to into the parts department when an opening became available, and that's where I finished up. Rose to the lofty position of assistant parts manager, and that was my last official title. The last few years of my employment there, I was not really what you would say. Oh no, it's closed. It's the road closed. Okay, we got to get to another way to get there. Okay. Oh, that's a bridge there. Okay. Anyway, I ended up being just a counter salesman the last 3 years when I was transferred to the other store. And actually, of the 35 years, I would say that was probably the best 3 out of the 35 with the company that I had. Everything was relaxed. Everybody was calm and cool. I was appreciated and compensated. Anyway, that's my my work and my last job. Last year, about a year ago, and coming up this next month, I went to work for my wife. Not an official capacity, but very unofficial. And as I said, it doesn't pay a lot, but the benefits are terrific.